Oh, hi, everybody. It's May 11th. My name's Ezra Levant. I'm the Rebel Commander here at rebelnews.com. And every day we have a 12 noon Eastern time live stream super chat. I'm not so immodest as to call it a super chat myself. That's actually the name given to it by Google. And what makes it super is that in addition to just regular chit chat, you can chip in a few quid, a few clams, a few bucks, a few dineros, literally in any number of currencies. And your chat will be made super. It'll be put in a bright highlighted color and it'll be stuck to the top of that little box there for a period of time commensurate with how much you chipped in. So it's sort of fun. And the great news for us is that YouTube shares 70% of it with us, so it's a way for us to make money in the age of demonetization. I do the show Monday, Wednesdays, and Thursdays. And my colleagues David Menzies and Sheila Gunn-Reid do it Tuesdays and Thursdays. Did I do that right? I'm Monday, Wednesday, Friday. They're Tuesday, Thursday. Sorry, I got mixed up there. Which is good because I have a few other things I got to do because I'm sort of busy these days. Not everyone's busy. Some people have been forcibly laid off. You know, I saw a statistic the other day. I think I showed it on Friday's show, that not a single person under 20 in Canada has died from the virus. Did I show that on Friday? It's all a big blur to me, the days. I'm just immersed in this stuff all the time. Not a single person under 20 has died in Canada. 37.5 million citizens in Canada. That's a lot of people. Not one person under 20 has died. Thank God. That's great. That's amazing. Yet, how many people 18, 19, and 20 have jobs? Actually, the unemployment rate, I think, measures from 16 and up. Yeah, I think that's a chart. I got this chart from Anthony Furey. Someone asked me the other day where I got this. Anthony Furey, the Toronto Sun, tweeted it. And although we don't like any deaths, a grand total of 12 deaths, people under 40. Now, that's a shame. But in a country of 37.5 million people, to have 12 deaths, for basically half the population, the average age, I'd have to check the median age in Canada. I think it's 35, median age Canada. I just want to tell you that. It's 40.8 years. It's older than I thought. Let's just call it 40 years. So do you know what median is? It's like the middle number. It's not average, because you're not averaging 1 and 90 and 2. It's, if you laid everything out, it would be the one right in the middle. So, can you put that chart up for one more second? So, 40.8 is the median age in Canada. Let's just say 40. So, literally half of Canadians are 40 or under. Half. And there have been only 12 deceased in that entire half of the country. Now, the other half is the one we got to look out for, not so much the 40 to 59s, 74 deaths from them this year. That's not great, but that is not a pandemic of crisis. The crisis is with the seniors' homes, as we saw in the Toronto Star. 82% of Canadian deaths have been in seniors' homes. I'm not even sure if that means it's an age issue. It might just be a what's going on in these seniors' homes issue. I tell you that because, and I talk about this on my show tonight. You know, I went through a drive-through for lunch on yesterday, and in Toronto, you know, the suburb of Toronto, nice enough place, not nowhere fancy. And a beggar came up to the car begging for food in Toronto. I've never seen that anywhere in Canada before. I've never seen that have you? I don't know his circumstance. I don't know if he was just someone who was homeless before. I think we're going to see an enormous amount of people destitute like that. And I have a few points to make. My first is that no one under 20 has died, and precious few under 40 have died, and the median age of Canada is 40. Median. So everybody up to the middle point. Okay, you had 12 deaths. That's not even a statistical thing. That's out of 37.5 million people. It's not even, it's less than 1 in a million. What's your chance of being struck by lightning? You know, I looked up the other day. Can you Google it? I bet you could find it faster than me. Deaths by wild animals in Canada. You know, more Canadians under 40 die every year by wild animals. And that includes driving into a moose. I think it's 30 or 40 deaths per year. Let me know if you need. Did we show that on the show? Maybe I tweeted it. I tried to find how many people die from lightning in Canada every year. It's not that many, thankfully. But if you've ever been in Newfoundland, what a great province. And you get out of the city and you're just booting around. You have a temptation to go fast. Don't go fast in Newfoundland. I don't know what the population of moose is, but it's got to be close to one moose for every person. Moose population, Newfoundland. I'm seeing a stat here. There's 120,000 moose, the most concentrated moose population in North America. Don't speed in Newfoundland. I hate to say it, you'll hit a moose. More Canadians have died from wild animals, including driving into moose, than from the virus. I'm talking about people under age 40. It's just a fact. Don't worry about that. But I want to show you what Jeremy Corbyn, the just deposed leader of the British Labour Party, tweeted. It made me angry. I saw this morning. I replied to it myself. Jeremy Corbyn, click on his tweet. He said, there should be no return to work until it is safe to do so. If work cannot be done safely, it should not proceed. People must come before private profit. Now, in some ways that makes sense. I wouldn't want to go into an unsafe workplace. If I was a pilot, I wouldn't want to fly an unsafe aircraft. If I was a patient, I wouldn't want an unsafe surgery. I wouldn't want to work in an unsafe factory. What does unsafe mean? Everything is a risk of some sort. We're all going to die someday from something. The survival rate in life is 0. We're all going to die. So what is the acceptable risk for any given activity? I've just shown you that statistically speaking, there has been a 0.000% chance of someone under 20 dying from the virus. And there is less than a 1 in a million. There's a 1 in 3 million chance of anyone under 40 dying from the virus. But if someone is unemployed forcibly because the government edict says you can't be a barber, boy, do I need one. You can't be a bartender. Who works in bars and restaurants? Young people. I remember, some of the finest memories I have of being that age was working as a waiter in a fun restaurant in Calgary. Before I turned 18, I was a busboy because you had to be 18 to serve alcohol. And then for 4 years when I was in college, I worked as a waiter. I loved it. Everyone there was late teens, early 20s. That's just what waitering is like. Imagine telling young, healthy people who really need the money, sorry, there's a problem at the seniors' home, so you can't work. So my point to Jeremy Corbyn is, he gets paid no matter what now, doesn't he? Jeremy Corbyn's a member of Parliament. So work, no work, stay at home, go to the office, it's all the same to him. In fact, I think there's a whole swath of society that's sort of been having a big pajama party the last 2 months. If you're a college professor, this has been absolutely great. You're still getting paid, you just don't have any students to deal with. You can catch up on your reading, just hang out. There are vast swaths of the economy, usually in the government sector, that this has just been a great time to catch up on Netflix, try some baking, hang out at home, sleep in. And I put Jeremy Corbyn in that camp. He doesn't want the lockdown to end as long as there is risk. Well, there's risk to everything. I drove here today. There was risk. There was some risk. In fact, there was a larger risk that I would die in a car accident than dying from the virus. I'd have to do the math to double check that, but I've shown you the math on wild animals already. So let me bring these threads together, and then I'm going to read some super chats. There's some risk to everything in life. There's as close to zero risk for people under 20 as possible from this virus. There's very low risk, 1 in 3 million, of deaths from people under 40. Yet mass unemployment is so bad that I saw beggars at a drive-thru trying to beg food. I've never seen that in Canada before. Yet we see a class divide. The government class says, no, this is fine, no, don't go back to work. The priestly elites who want to tell us what we can and can't do are telling the working class, it's quite something, and I don't see, where are the champions of the working class here? You know what, I retweeted the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives for the first time in my life today. Can you go to my Twitter feed? Have you ever heard of the Canadian, and I see the super chats, I'll get to them, I promise you. I see Fraser there, I see Debauche, I promise I'll get back to those. Have you ever heard of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives? It was started as sort of a counterweight to the Fraser Institute. Fraser Institute is a free market think tank based in Vancouver. When I was young, I was a student intern there. I really liked it. Can you click on that and let's look at the words, and then I'll read the. So wow, let me just read those words that were there on the right for a second there. Wow, half of those making under $16 an hour lost their jobs, or majority of their hours since February. For richest, making $48 an hour, only 1% of them lost jobs or most of hours. This is not an equally shared impact. And then, click on that, make that a little bit bigger. Let's take a look at this here. So, jobs or majority of hours lost by wage, February to April. So, I guess that means, did you lose most of your job? And you can see that these bars, they start on the left, people making less than $14 an hour. I don't know what the lowest minimum wage in Canada is, but if you are a minimum wager, where are you working if you got minimum wage? Well, I told you about when I was a busboy, when I was 17. I wasn't making much more than minimum wage. So 50% of people making 15 bucks an hour. And then as you get higher and higher, by the way, if you're making 48 bucks an hour, if you're working 40 hours a week, 50 weeks a year, do the quick math, that's 2,000 hours a year. So just multiply, if you want to know a rough estimate of what an hourly wage is in a year for no overtime, just 40 hours a week, multiply by 2,000. So if you're making 48 bucks an hour, that's just a shade under 100 grand. Now, of course, this is a left-wing think tank, but I don't mind citing the statistics because, first of all, I believe they're accurate, and second of all, that goes to my point, is that it's the government class that's not laid off. You know who a lot of those $48 an hour people are? Government workers, teachers unions, nurses unions. And I know that some nurses have been working hard, but most hospitals are empty. Professors, Service Canada, people who are supposed to be helping you with, they just, we don't want to get sick. It's the people who are the people who are working those $15 an hour jobs? They that were the ones who heard. So when Jeremy Corbyn, and I only picked this tweet because it came across my radar and I just was mad about it. When Jeremy Corbyn, the so-called leader of the Labour Party, former leader, wants this lockdown to continue in the name of working people, nah, mate. The working people are the ones who are poor. You've never been working class, but you certainly live high off them, don't you? So I tell you all these things in a very meandering way that has gotten me criticism from viewers lately, because I want to show you, I'm busy. I'm busy because I'm running a company, I'm doubling my output, I'm doing a show during the day, a show at night. I just about finished my book. I was up till almost 8 a.m. In fact, I went to bed at 8:15 a.m. this morning. Slept for 75 minutes, got up at 9:30, and we had our conference. This is Red Bull number 2. I'll probably have 3 or 4 today. I'm not looking for sympathy. I'm just saying I feel very busy. We got to get the company going. We got to make sure everything's okay. We haven't laid off anyone, as you know. Thank you, Rebel Viewers, for helping us stay strong. So I feel busy, and I run a company of about 20 people. You know who should be the busiest man in the country? Justin Trudeau. Because this is the time for the government to do certain things that only the government can do. Seal off the borders. Make emergency arrangements to get production going for essential supplies that used to be only available from China and that now China is playing games with. Masks, other protective garments. There are a few things for the federal government to do. Running hospitals is a provincial jurisdiction, but you would think that Justin Trudeau would be busy. But in fact, he is the least busy man in Canada. He is in almost his third month of make-believe pretend quarantine. No other world leader has just said, oh, pajama days, snow days? Yeah, I'll sign up for that. Boris Johnson got the cough, the Rona, went to intensive care, got back out, went back to work. That's how, I mean, you can agree or disagree with what he's doing, but he got the full cough. And he didn't check out. Donald Trump has not got the virus. I don't know of any world leader who has, without risk, without doctor's advice, without any symptoms, said, yeah, I think I like this work from home and watch Netflix thing, and let Theresa Tam from the World Health Organization and Chrystia Freeland, George Soros' personal biographer, let them run the country. And so I want to show you two videos over the weekend from Justin Trudeau that are just absolutely pitiful. I mean, he's pitiful at the best of times, but these are not the best of times. I want to start with sort of a creepy video he did. I think it was on Mother's Day, and he was trying to say, hey kids, let me give you, and of course the conceit is that of course he knows that the moms would not leave the room. He was it was just so transparent. Take a look at this weird, slightly creepy middle-aged man with who's become a bit of a recluse. His fingernails are so long. I don't even. It's like those recluses whose fingernails get so long they start to curl. His are almost that long. Take a look at this first clip of Justin Trudeau the other day.
By asking all the moms to step out of the room for a minute so I can talk to your kids. I'll give you a second. Okay.
Can I get all the moms to step out of the room for a moment while I talk to your kids? This is the guy that, as we discussed on Friday, is a serial groper who sexually assaulted Rose Knight in Creston, BC, and only apologized when he realized that she worked for the National Post and thus could embarrass him. When a creepy man, estranged from his wife, one of the reasons he's at his home in Rideau Cottage, his wife and kids are in Harrington Lake. He's living apart from his wife, which is not normal. He's estranged from his wife. He's living on his own in a 22-room house. He's not going to work. He's got his I don't give a care beard anymore. He's still in vacation mode. He's checked out. He's getting a little creepy. And he says to TV, hey, mums, leave the room. I want to talk to your kids alone. Pro tip, parenting tip, stranger danger tip. If a creepy, estranged man who's living by himself in a big old house tells you, moms, that he wants a few minutes alone with your children of tender years, that's the time to hang on to their hands so tight they say, ow, Mom! That's the time to hang on to your kids that tight and walk away from the stranger danger Amber Alert situation unfolding in front of you. Now that was just creepiness, but the next day, yesterday, Trudeau, instead of handling budget matters, we're in the worst fiscal crisis in almost a century. Unemployment, 2 million souls out of work. The crisis of the pandemic healthcare. The looming crisis of all the other health matters that were deferred. Supply chain issues. Diplomatic issues. I can't even list. Each one of these things is a major crisis. All of them at once? Not for Trudeau. He's checked out. Look at him. I'm busy. And I run a 20-person thing. Here's a guy in charge of a, what's the Canadian budget? $250 billion a year? We got unemployment coming up on 20%, and this is what he's doing with his time. He's giving homework tips as a teacher. You're not a teacher, mate. You're the Prime Minister. Take a look at this.
Hey kids, I know we're all going through a difficult time right now, and it's not made any easier by the fact that you have to do your homework around the kitchen table. I think parents across the country are discovering a new appreciation for the incredible work that teachers do. Well, as a teacher, I want to help. If you've encountered challenges or problems that are really tough and you need a little extra help with, why don't you reach out by responding to this message or using the hashtag. Our friends and I will be happy to try and help you out because, after all, the way we're going to get through this is by pulling together.
Yeah, you're not a teacher. You were a teacher for what, like half a semester, and then you were unceremoniously sacked by a private school when there were swirling rumors of sexual impropriety. You haven't been a teacher for decades. I don't know if you ever were actually a teacher. You were more a mascot. From what we saw in the yearbook that Candace Malcolm brought in, I don't think you even taught any classes. You're not a teacher, mate. If I needed a teacher, I probably wouldn't go to the dumbest kid in class. Is there anything that Justin Trudeau could help your kid with? Do you think he knows math, or spelling, or history, or geography, or algebra, or calculus? And if he did even, is that what he should be doing right now? Do we have the 2 kidnapped hostages back from China? Have we figured out when Trudeau spent $2 billion in paying extortionate prices for personal protective equipment, and he got like 1 million masks from China that were counterfeit and fakes, and they didn't actually filter anything? That's not on his mind. He's not working the phones on that, dealing with the seniors' home crisis, dealing with the temporary foreign workers that seem to be hotspot. That's just not on his mind. He wants to answer like a spelling question or a coloring question from someone in grade school, does he? What a laugh. Let's go through some super chats. John Singus, $2. Do we have remdesivir in Canada? That's a therapeutic drug. I don't know if we do. See, that's an example. Donald Trump is right in the thick of that. Talking to doctors, talking to researchers, meeting with them, getting enthusiastic about them, ordering them. Justin Trudeau's sitting in his cottage talking to moms in a creepy way and offering to do homework for kids. Proud Dutchman, £2. Hi Ezra, I need to speak to Tommy, it's urgent. I presume you mean Tommy Robinson. I would encourage you to contact him through his website, tr.news. Donald Pollock, $2 Canadian. Homeless, drugs on Vancouver Street, no media reporting. Well, there's always been a terrible problem in downtown Vancouver. The East Hastings Street was just quite a shocking, like Skid Row in San Francisco, or was that in LA? I'm sorry, I got my Skid Rows mixed up. I'm very curious how Vancouver handled that squalid block or two on East Hastings, and I wonder what it's like now. Canadian Stacker, Canadians Ottawa at the Flame Noon Saturday stand. There's more and more protests. I saw a live stream by Laura Lynn, what's her last name, Taylor, in BC. It looked like a fairly large march to reopen things in BC. And do we have available some of David's latest video that he went to the protest? I know you did a new one yesterday that I watched last night. Can you play the one that's not published yet? We can give our people a sneak preview. I saw it, Mocha edited it. If you can find it, great. If not, don't worry about it. If we can find it, I just sent Justin on an impossible errand. I said, show a video that's not even published yet. So maybe he can, maybe he can't. But let me move on with the super chats. Debauche, what's with Justin not laying a wreath at the tomb of our unknown soldier for the 75th victory in Europe VE Day celebration? USA, Britain, France, Russia, etc. did it. Thank you very much for bringing that to my attention. I followed the VE Day celebrations not very closely, but I saw what Russia, the US, the UK did and said, and I didn't even think, what's our lazy teacher have to say about it? I think you're right. I think he just did not even do it, but why is that surprising at all? Thank you for, that's great. I'm going to look into that. Fraser William Perroni, $12. I survived the hoax. 1970s global cooling, 1980s global warming, 2000s climate change, now the China flu. Yeah. I recall in January, February, when I was seeing all those videos coming out of China, cell phone vids that got through the Great Firewall of China. I knew something bad was going on there, but I had no idea how bad. And I had just watched the movie, the HBO series Chernobyl, so I knew about cover-ups in communist systems. We still don't know how many people died in China. Was it 10 times? Was it 100 times what was reported? So that was, and the fact that they were locking down 40, 50 million people at a time sounded so dramatic. I was nervous when it came to Canada. Thank God it didn't have the impact that the worst models predicted. In fact, Canada, if I'm not mistaken, has about 4,800 deaths. And of course, every one of those is a tragedy. Can you call up the Canadian stats right now? I think it's 4,800. Maybe it's hit 5,000 already. I should tell you that, if I'm going from memory here, the official models used by Justin Trudeau for his planning, the worst, so what's that stat there? 4,900, yeah, so it's just under 5,000. Now that's not good. That's not good, but I should tell you, and I'm going from memory here, correct me if I'm wrong, the official modeling statistics that Justin Trudeau revealed were behind his planning. The best case scenario, if I recall, was 60,000. Does that ring a bell, Justin? 60,000. And the worst case scenario, as in if there was no social distancing, if there were no remedies at all, if the health system were overwhelmed, was 350,000. So, and I'm going from memory, and Justin, you correct me if I'm off in a significant way. So the best case scenario was still 12 times worse than what happened. And the worst case scenario was 70 times worse than what happened. Now, in one way, you can't blame people for a prediction. A prediction is just that. It's a prediction. It's a model. It's not a plan or a promise. It's here's what I think based on these assumptions. But we've been through it now for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, and we see that all the models were wrong. So why are we still living like we're in the worst case scenario? Why are we still on lockdown? Proud Boys Calgary, $7. He sacrifices daily manicures and can't clip his own nails. Stinking and brave. Daily reminder, Chinese Communist Party delenda est. Chinese Communist Party must be destroyed. Even Justin Trudeau surely knows how to use nail clippers of his own. He managed to dye his own hair. His hair is suddenly brown, not really the black it was. He can figure out how to use nail clippers. Mike Jones, $2. Thank you. Alberta Skies, $5. Is there any updates on Alberta drug trials with hydroxychloroquine? Not that I have, but that's a good question. Mike Jones, $2. Do you support Jason Kenney? Well, I've known Jason since I was in college, and we've been good friends. I'm less close to him over the last couple of years than I was before that. In fact, I'm based in Toronto, he's in Edmonton. I saw him about 6 months ago when I was in Edmonton, very briefly, said a quick hello. And our reporters, Sheila Gunn-Reid and Cian Bexley, ask him questions whenever they want, and he answers them, which I'm glad he does. I think in general I do support Jason Kenney. I think that he is, as premiers go, doing a good job. And I think that he, along with other premiers, are forming the official opposition to Justin Trudeau, because we certainly don't see it from the federal Conservative Party. Even on things outside typical provincial jurisdiction, I was thrilled. I don't know if you can find this in a hurry. when China arrested Hong Kong democracy activists, I think it was Martin Lee, I can't remember who, Jason Kenney posted on Twitter a photo of him, I think it was Martin Lee, one of the very famous democracy activists in Hong Kong. Kenney tweeted a picture of him and the arrestee saying, you know, I stand with the people of Hong Kong or something like that, which was a wonderful, yeah, they're perfect, thank you. Let me read that. Shocked to learn that my longtime friend, Martin Lee, founder of the Hong Kong Democratic Party, was arrested today together with many of Hong Kong's most prominent citizens. Martin is the elder statesman of Hong Kong democracy. I hope for his immediate release. That's a great picture. They're both really smiling. I'm proud to say that we interviewed Martin Lee when we had reporters over in Hong Kong last year. The fact that he is arrested is truly shocking. He is the elder statesman. I'm just trying to think of a Canadian analogy, and I can't even think of one because he's like the father figure. I can't even think of an analogy. It would be like arresting. There's no one who's that well regarded without a partisan stain to it. It wouldn't even be like arresting Jean Chrétien or Paul Martin, former prime ministers, because they are partisan and somewhat discredited and scandalous. Not Martin Lee. He would be like everyone's favorite guy, like sort of like Ronald Reagan has achieved that status since he's deceased. Ronald Reagan is one of the few presidents who's risen above partisan rancor after death. Imagine arresting a guy like that. So Jason Kenney stood up for Martin Lee. Silence from Justin Trudeau. Proud Dutchman, £2. Yes, I meant Tommy Robinson. I'll write him a TR. Yeah, that's the best. The CKPWN, 1234. Trudeau needed to answer Canadian question, not kids' homework. We know he failed them, and we don't need our kid to end up like him. Asking for answers isn't asking too much. Canadians aren't asking for too much. Yeah, I mean, he's just so oblivious. He's tone deaf. He's sitting at home watching. He's not working. He's not banging the phones, chairing meetings. I mean, he's on the odd conference call, but he's just in vacation mode. He really is. Dean Tate, £2. Thank you very much. All right, I think I've caught up on the Super Chats. Oh, I hear in my ear from Justin that we have some of David's, I think it's unpublished, so let's give people a sneak peek. Here's some of the growing protests in Canada. This is in Toronto, and while we're showing this, I'll try and Google the one I saw from Vancouver. Go ahead. Okay, sorry, it's going to be 1 second here. Yeah, I think that as people realize that, oh, here, take a look.
Down flag was expressing disdain or disrespect for the military, and that he would personally help you pack your bags to find another country to live in. What do you make of those comments?
Well, I offered him the same thing. If he doesn't like it, he can pack his bags and go somewhere else too. He can go back to his cottage that he told us not to go to.
Maybe they should understand what it stands for. A country in distress. We're in distress.
We would love to pack his bags in 2022 and send him back to the cottage.
Literally, he was just trying to turn the people who are really ignorant against the protesters. What he was aiming to do was to make people mad at the people who are actually fighting for freedom. The reality is that an upside down flag, like you've said, is just a sign of distress, nothing more. And the fact is, no one's moving anywhere, Doug Ford. We voted you in, and how about you go ask Trudeau why he's giving $853 million of taxpayers' money to the UN. That's who he should worry about. We're not moving anywhere. We're going to stay here and demand for our rights, period.
We think we have rights and freedoms, but we have privileges and allowances. And the way they've rolled this out is a perfect example of when push comes to shove and the authoritarians want to enforce their will upon the people, this is what happens.
Well, I come from a military family, so a lot of people in my family have actually fought and died for our freedom, the freedoms of Canada that I am trying to defend now by speaking out. So, yes, I do consider it very insulting. Same with him calling us a bunch of yahoos. As far as I'm concerned, we're the yahoos that pay him. We're his boss, and he should start listening to the people.
When you can't articulate your position with facts and data, you name call. That's an ad hominem attack. And he's got nothing, so he's name calling. And it's intellectually dishonest.
I don't know. I just thought he was for the people. Isn't that what he said? But I'm not feeling it right now. I really am not.
I hope you get your wish, my friend, and you get back to school very quickly.
Yep, I really do hope to go back to school. I mean, I'm cold, so I'm out. Me and my mom are out here so we can make a difference.
Give me your best Greta Thunberg, how dare you?
How dare you?
They're very...
That's such a great video. I don't think we published it yet. It'll be up shortly. Great streeters, very thoughtful people. I love streeters. That's what you call when you man on the street. Vox pop is another way of vox populi, voice of the people. You never know what you're going to get. And the variety of people is endless and infinite and endlessly interesting. Just the different shapes and sizes and colors and styles and tones. And I love the streeters. And David is so personable when he does it. He really gets people to open up, and he really has a knack for it. I really like that. You can see one of the things that we're upset about is that because some of the protesters had flown the Canadian flag upside down. You fly any country's flag upside down, it's a sign of distress. It's what a ship would use to signal something's wrong here. Doug Ford, who I don't know what's happening to him these days, sounding like a liberal, he said it was unpatriotic and he'd help ship these people out of Canada. That's a very strange thing. It's a very defensive and combative thing to say to his own base. It gets me back to that very first tweet by Jeremy Corbyn, the former leader of the Labour Party in the UK, which is Doug Ford and all the people he hangs out with are getting paid and they're having the time of their lives, being bossy, exercising new powers, new borrowing, new spending. But that motley crew of people there in Queen's Park, Toronto, those are real people. And I tell you, I mean, I look in the mirror every day and I just look forward to giving a big warm handshake to a barber. And let me ask you this. Who is more essential? Who's a more essential service in your life? A barber or some government bureaucrat? It's not even a contest. Another super chat I see there, Sobieski, $20. If in 18 months it turns out that the vaccine is not working and needs more time, the economy collapse with China buying up everything for pennies on the dollar, is the collapse of Canada the legacy Trudeau wants to have? Well, it's certainly the legacy that his bosses in Beijing want, which brings me to a proposed takeover of a strategic mine in northern Canada. I just saw this out of the corner of my eye the other day. This should be front page news. Look at this from the Nunatsiaq News, if I'm pronouncing that right. I've never been there. That's the one territory I have not been to. I've had the pleasure of being to the Northwest Territory, and the Yukon is wonderful. But look at this. Nunavut's Hope Bay goldfields to be bought by China's SD Gold. We look forward to completion of the transaction and the opportunity to invest in the project for years. Look how far north that is. Let me read a little bit of it. TMAC Resources, Inc., which owns the Hope Bay Gold Mine Complex in western Nunavut, is poised to be bought by a Chinese gold mining giant. The Shandong Gold Mining Company Limited, better known as SD Gold, is willing to pay $207.4 million for the western Nunavut mine. That's $1.75 per share in cash, a price that is 4.2% above Thursday's closing price on the Toronto Stock Exchange. Is that it? Normally when there's a takeover, the acquisitor pays 10, 20, 30, 40, 50% premium. The fact that they say, oh yeah, okay, so you're trading in the stock market for $1, we'll give you $1.04 or $1.75, so it's a 4.2% premium. Stocks fluctuate that in a day. This is a fire sale. China destroyed our economy, but because they have $2-3 trillion in foreign currency reserves, now they're coming and buying everything up on the cheap. And Trudeau's just letting them. Absolutely. You know, there was an idea in the United States, a cheeky idea, but I've seen it done, of renaming the street on which the Chinese embassy is located, renaming that street in honor of the whistleblowing doctor. U.S. provokes China by seeking to name streets after Wuhan doctor who sounded coronavirus alarm. There he is right there. The proposed bill put forward by U.S. senators honors the late Dr. Li Wenliang, the Wuhan-based doctor who warned the world about the coronavirus. Scroll down a little bit, please. U.S. politicians on Thursday proposed renaming the street in front of China's embassy after the late Wuhan doctor punished after warning about the new coronavirus. A step sure to outrage Beijing. The measure would rechristen the section of the Washington Street in front of the embassy Li Wenliang Plaza instead of the innocuous current name of International Place. I like that idea. And by the way, the commies do that to us. Why can't we do that to the commies? You know, I don't know if you can find it, but if you look at any images of the U.S. embassy or interest section in Havana, Cuba, they have all these anti-American murals and Che Guevara murals and denouncing Americans. In fact, Barack Obama posed for a picture in front of it when he made his disgraceful visit to that prison island a few years back. Can you grab an image of that? So if the commies can put up street art and name streets and stuff around the American embassy to say communism's great, capitalism sucks, U.S. is evil, why can't America honor a Chinese citizen and doctor? Why would that be considered offensive to anyone, by anyone? I don't know. What time is it? It's 12:42. Let's take some more questions. I have, oh, sorry, go ahead. One more super chat that I missed. Oh, I think I might have missed one in public. That's what Justin's telling me. Let me check it. Dean Tate, 79 pence. I don't think you read Canadian Stacker just above Sobieski. Oh, okay, I'll do that. Thank you. Oh, that's you saying that. Okay, thank you. Justin is sending me these messages by WhatsApp, so I'm mixing them up here. Canadian Stacker says, are you sending men's out to Queen's Saturday? You know, he's on the go. He's going full tilt. He's crisscrossing the province. We were going to send him to Montreal, but the story fell through. He's so busy. He's doing a great job, isn't he? Yeah, you see what I mean? Like, there's Obama in front of a huge mural. I think that's Che Guevara. So if that's the kind of propaganda the commies can do, why can't America name a plaza after a Chinese medical hero? Okay. I'm going to shift gears a little bit. I want to give you a sneak preview of what I'm doing my show on tonight. So I really was working till 8 a.m. this morning. I was here at the office till like 7:30 a.m., went home, slept from 8:15 to 9:30. That's not good. And then hopped on our 10 a.m. conference call and then came in. What was I doing? I was finishing up my book. But as I was in the office procrastinating, I received a bunch of emails from people in Edmonton, Alberta. And can you go to the vid embedded in my script, the YouTube version, which is higher res than the email version? So there was one of these protests, like you saw the protest there at Queen's Park. There was a protest in Edmonton. I tell you that the weather was just incredible in Toronto, wasn't it? It was glorious, sunny, and then in moments later it was snowing. When I left the office this morning to go home, it was snowing. It was snowing out. Anyways, so I started getting emails about a protest in Edmonton that was in the same vein as the protest that David has been covering in Toronto. But alas, it was much smaller. There were fewer people. It was disorganized. Just didn't seem to have the same buzz to it. Now, it's also like a huge concrete plaza in front of the Alberta legislature. And as you can imagine, on a Sunday afternoon, the Alberta legislature is largely empty. I don't even know if the legislature is sitting in any normal sense. So basically, it was people shouting in an empty building. I've done my share of that in my day. You find that okay? Perfect. So a bunch of people sent me different video clips, and there's a guy who was haranguing on about a bunch of things. And I honestly didn't pay a lot of attention to all of it. I just don't need to hear it. But he was peaceful, he wasn't armed, he wasn't threatening. He was hollering. In fact, I think that's his last name, Holler. And Shakespeare would have too much fun with that his name is Holler. He had a megaphone with him, as one tends to do with these protests. And after a while, police just sort of said, you know what? Let's give that guy a huge ticket and haul him away. Here, just watch a bit of this.
It's right here. You can do it here. I do not consent, and I am not going to willingly comply. Nope. He does not consent with you. Do I? Show me a law that states that I have to provide identification to you. Okay, now show me how that applies to me. I have not committed any offense today. No, it is not. As far as I am concerned, you are trying to abridge my unalienable rights, and I do not consent. I'm being charged. Okay, right. So now I am being charged. So tell me exactly what I'm being charged with. So first it was being detained and now I'm being arrested. What is it? So why am I being charged when there's a whole other group of people here and yet you're going to come and pick on me? Do you guys have a problem with the things that I was discussing here today?
Well, he said 71-1, so make up your mind. 71-1, 73-1.
I am here peacefully. I'm not doing anything wrong.
It's an act.
I am not in a group.
It's not something the health minister. She's an act. It's an act. 71-1, 73-1, no figure it out eventually.
I don't have ID.
He doesn't have to comply.
You guys took that from me last year. I'm sorry. These are unlawful orders. You are infringing on my unalienable rights, my God-given rights that are endowed upon me by my Creator, and I am not going to comply.
Get your name and badge number.
Hey, back up.
What is your name and badge number?
Look at this brutality. This is Alberta.
3 times in a week.
Alberta! Alberta, Canada. This is happening and you guys are letting it? This is not...
So what was that guy doing wrong again? Was he threatening anyone? Was he running around? Was he drunk? Was he fighting? Was he even swearing? Not that swearing is against the law. Was he causing a disturbance? Well, not really. I mean, it was a protest in front of the legislature. There was really no one there. You notice everyone was socially distant from each other. No one was close to. The only people who got close to him were the cops. There were quite a few of them, weren't they? His name, I just checked, is Cody Holler, which is a great name. Why was he arrested and taken away like that? I don't know if you could hear. It was sort of low volume, but I listened to that clip a couple times yesterday. One of the cops cited Section 73(1) of the Public Health Act of Alberta. All right, let's take a look at what that has to say. Section 73(1) does not ban anything in particular. Did you get my note on that? It didn't, it's not an order to socially distance or to wear a mask or anything like that. It's actually not a substantive provision at all. Yeah, highlight it and pump it up a little bit. It's called penalty. It's the penalty for doing something wrong. A person who contravenes this act, the regulations, an order under Section 62, or an order of a medical officer of health or physician under Part 3 is guilty of an offense. So all that says is, if you break a law, so if you break an order, That's an offense. Okay, but the guy repeatedly said, what did I do? What did I do? Well, you violated Section 73.1. No, Section 73.1 is not a substantive provision of what you can or can't do health-wise. Section 73.1 doesn't say you can't have a group. You can't be less than 2 meters from someone. You can't go out without a mask. Section 73.1 does not list an offense. It says if you have broken an offense in those other paragraphs, then you're guilty. So when the cops say you broke 73.1, he says, what did I do? What did I do? What did I do? You broke 73.1. Nah, mate, you're not even reading the law properly. 73.1 is what happens when you do break another section of the act. That really irritated me because, first of all, that's supposed to be the freest province in Canada. Alberta's motto is Fortis et Liber, which in Latin means strong and free. It should be the freest of the provinces. And yet they physically picked him up, 3 cops, and dragged him away. For what? Well, one of them was asked, and he didn't even know the law. He couldn't think of anything. And you know what got to me the most? I mentioned earlier that yesterday I went to a drive-in, and there was a guy so hungry and poor. He was there at the drive-thru begging for food. I have not seen that in Canada. And I don't know this Cody Holler guy. In fact, I just heard of him yesterday. Actually, I Googled him when we were watching one of the videos. Looks like he is or used to be like a blue-collar tradesman in the oil patch, which means he's probably unemployed. I don't know, so it's not a good idea to guess, I suppose, if I could just check with him. But there are 200,000 men like that in Alberta who have been laid off before the virus. Justin Trudeau, Rachel Notley, their war on oil and gas, shutting down oil sands, banning pipelines. 200,000 guys have been told by the elites, you can't work because global warming, because the models say you're going to burn up the earth as it snows in May. So there's a guy who was, I don't know if he's unemployed, could be. 200,000 guys who look just like him are. So the experts who won't get laid off because they're on the taxpayer's dime, they had models that the UN, the United Nations approved, saying you can't burn oil and gas because we're all going to die. Funny how that doesn't apply to oil and gas made in Saudi Arabia, Iran, Iraq, Venezuela, Nigeria, Russia. So the experts with the models told that guy he couldn't work. And now the experts with the models that are off by as much as 70 times, tell that guy he can't work, he can't even leave his house, he can't go to the restaurant. And one of the things he sounds worried about, and I didn't get into this deeply, but sounds worried that he's going to be forced to take some vaccine if he wants any legal privileges. Can we grab the Theresa Tam National Fillmore clip? And, oh, that's crazy talk. No one's going to force you to have a vaccine. Oh, sure, we're forcing you to have a vaccine, but it's good for you. Oh, sure, we're forcing you to have a vaccine, and some people have side effects, but it's for the public good. Who's the crazy one? You know, I was watching a National Film Board documentary called Outbreak. It was Professor Bliss, I think I told you this the other day. Professor Michael Bliss, I'm not sure if he's still with us, he narrated this great documentary about the smallpox epidemic in Montreal 135 years ago. I didn't know there was a smallpox epidemic in Montreal. I think 5,000 people died, which is an enormous number given how small Montreal was back then. And that was, 1885. That was before modern medicine. They were just trying things out. And one of the things that they did is they were trying vaccines. They would take, I think it was cowpox or something, or chickenpox, and inject a tiny bit of that into you. The idea being that your body would build up antibodies to this cowpox, I think it was, and that would fight the smallpox. That's how some vaccines are made. People were nervous about it. There was a newfangled idea, the idea of purposefully injecting yourself with an animal disease sounded bizarre. And a lot of people were against it, and wouldn't you know it, one of the batches, according to this movie Outbreak, that was used as a documentary, one of the batches that was indeed used in Montreal was defective in some way. And it made people ill. It killed people. The vaccine killed people in Montreal. That's a fact. That's not a conspiracy theory. And so when this fella in Edmonton is worried about vaccines, you know, he has the right to be worried. The rest of his life was messed up by experts and their models. And I want to show you this clip I think I've shown you before. Here's Theresa Tam 10 years ago in this National Film Board documentary saying, it was an interesting documentary. It flashed between a historical look at 1885 Montreal and the smallpox epidemic and their hypothetical situation of a flight attendant coming in from London to Montreal with smallpox, getting ill, staying in her hotel, making the hotel cleaning lady ill, and that causing a new outbreak of smallpox in Montreal in the present day. So it was juxtaposing the historical story of how smallpox spread in Montreal in 1885 with a hypothetical scenario of it doing so again. It was quite an interesting documentary. But what's so terrifying to me, first of all, is all the premonitions in this government documentary of what a pandemic would look like. But who presents herself in this documentary talking about what she thinks ought to happen in a new pandemic, but Dr. Theresa Tam, Justin Trudeau's public health officer. And look at this clip where she's talking about how things would be if there were an epidemic of smallpox today.
I think the public has to know this is one of the worst case scenarios in terms of an infectious disease outbreak, in that their cooperation is sought. If there are people who are non-compliant, there are definitely laws and public health powers that can quarantine people in mandatory settings. It's potential you could track people, put bracelets on their arms, have police and other setups to ensure quarantine is undertaken. It is better to be preemptive and precautionary and take the heat of people thinking you might.
Got it. So handcuffs, tracking bracelets, police detention, it's better, you know. That's Theresa Tam. Yeah, but that protester's the crazy one. Hey, it's 12:58. I see a couple of amazing super chats. Desiree Mendoza, $10. 82% of COVID deaths in Canada have been from nursing homes. Infections from healthcare staff. Hospitals won't be overwhelmed if they protected the vulnerable as they should be doing. Yeah, well, I mean, referring to that documentary called Outbreak, the hospitals became the super spreaders of the smallpox because everyone went there, got everyone else sick. Same thing with these seniors. You know, if people had immediately pulled their grandparents and parents out of these seniors' homes 2 months ago and brought them home, if that would be possible, Canada's death count from this virus would be microscopic. Not microscopic, but it would be, well, 82% lower. An amazing $100 super chat from Dave Dunn. Thank you very much, Dave. Ezra, we're grateful every day for Rebel News' vigilant effort to bring the truth to patriotic Canadians, despite being hamstrung in every turn. Keep up the great journalism. We sincerely appreciate your diligence. Well, that's a very nice note to end on, Dave. Thank you very much for that. It's a real pleasure to work with the team that we have here. And you know what, I'm excited to say we're growing. Just today we brought aboard Anna Slatz, who will be doing written work for us, investigative pieces, news items. In fact, I think her first story might already be up on the web. So we're growing, and that's great, and that's a testament to you, our viewers, and your generosity. Max Leitner, £2. I'm 15 years old. Please Twitter 04 after my name. Okay, I'll look you up on Twitter, Max. Breathing in Sunshine, $10. We are living under martial law, only a matter of time until cop killings become routine. Well, I certainly hope not. We become like USSR, Germany, modern-day Venezuela, or China, right before it hit the point of no return. Well, hopefully you're wrong on that. And one of the things we're doing here, we're not just talking, we're doing something. We've hired a senior lawyer in Ontario named Sam Goldstein and lawyers around the country to supplement him. And we're fighting individual cases. We have, I think, 11 cases. We've publicized 8 of them already. We're fighting in the law. We're fighting in the courts. Now that's slow and it's expensive, but it's better than doing nothing. And to my shock and dismay, the liberal civil liberties associations are not lifting a finger. So it's fallen to us, which is very strange because I regard us as a, we're called Rebel News. We're not called Rebel Public Interest Law Firm, but we've become that to fill the void. Fat woolly temp worker Hoser Canucks chips in $5. Thank you very much for that. One super chat just came in from Mazamonte 2, £5. You've seen Computing Forever's interview with Dr. Dolores Cahill, a real expert. Vitamin C, D, zinc, and hydroxychloroquine, and we survive. Social distancing is useless. As I pointed out the other day, I've been to Taiwan. That is a very dense city. Hong Kong is a very dense city. You can't social distance in a crammed subway tube, in jammed streets and apartments. So they wear masks. But more importantly, they quarantine people at the border. They don't let them in, which forces us all to quarantine in our own homes. We got that so wrong. My friends, it's 101, but I did promise that we would end every show with a puppy video of Justin's selection. I have not seen this video, but why don't we go out on this note? So I'll say goodbye now. Thanks to everyone for watching, and thanks for chipping in, including the very generous gift from Dave Dunn. I appreciate that. And let's end on a friendly note. Here's a puppy video selected by Justin.